Suppose you're vegetarian and you want to increase the amount of protein in your diet and you don't want to radically change your diet. Watch this video and by the end, I'll give you 5 simple ideas that can help you easily eat more protein. Protein has an image problem. 80% of India is not getting enough protein. And while you might think this has to do with poverty, and surely this must only be a problem for the poor and not for the rich, that's not true. In fact, even the rich often do not end up eating enough protein. And on a lighter note, we Indians are unique because the rich often call themselves the middle class. Because in comparison to the super rich, we don't feel very rich. So why is our default diet low protein? It's complicated and multifactorial. 1. Despite the fact that 70% of India is not vegetarian, the per capita consumption of animal protein is almost 10 times less than the West and 3 times less than China. And even if money is not a concern, the definition of a traditional diet does not feature much protein. In the West, the star of the meal is the protein. Here, the star of the meal is carbohydrates. And there are historical factors for this. Firstly, this is the elephant in the room, and many vegetarians don't like hearing this. But I want you to hear me out without getting angry. There has always been a cultural bias against meat. And since I am not a historian or anthropologist, these are personal observations of someone who grew up in a vegetarian household, but then had the opportunity to explore the world and write about the science of Indian cooking. Only in India do we consider all meat to be impure and not sattvic, and we have bans against it and put prominent red and green dots to distinguish. Many vegetarians will not eat in restaurants that also serve meat, but no NRI will go ask a restaurant abroad if they use different cooking vessels for veg and non-veg. We are also the only part of the world where the term non-veg is used. It's strange because meat eaters also eat veg food. In fact, most of their diet is vegetarian, so they cannot be non-veg. Again, to be clear, this is not to ask vegetarians to eat meat. People should eat whatever they want to based on their cultural and personal choices. But just appreciate the cultural normal we often take for granted. Caste and religion in India are strongly tied to food habits. And the preferences of a small vegetarian elite still has a sizable effect on overall food culture. Fortunately, this is changing rapidly in the last few decades. So, quick summary, animal protein is demonized culturally, and that is the most convenient high-quality protein. Culture aside, British colonial mismanagement of food security has shifted our diets more towards grains like rice and wheat. And ironically, we now consider that traditional too. In many parts of India, dairy, milk, curd, paneer, etc. is the primary source of high quality animal protein. But lactose intolerance is also pretty common. It varies from 70% tolerance in the north and west to 70% intolerance in the south and east. So this also indirectly reduces the per capita consumption because people in general don't like having an upset tummy from dairy consumption. 3. We also have a unique cultural bias against eggs, which, as I explain in this video, are unfortunately considered non-veg, while milk is considered veg. There is no better quality protein that you can add to your diet than eggs, and they are the most convenient things to cook. Fun fact, eggs are considered vegetarian outside of India. 4. A popular misconception, particularly among vegetarians, is that dal is a rich source of protein. It is not. Dal is complex carbohydrates, which, by the way, is excellent for gut health, that also has some protein. Most of the calories in dal, and this includes chana, rajma, urad, moong, tuar, masoor, etc., come from carbohydrates, not protein. And the protein in dal is not complete, meaning that it does not contain amino acids in the proportion that our bodies require. So we often have to combine dal with other sources of protein to make it complete. And in India, that's mostly grains like wheat or rice. So puri chole, chapati dal, and rajma chawal, for example, and that just adds even more carbohydrates to our diet. 5. Even among those that realize that getting a bare minimum amount of protein is important and trying to get all of it from an Indian vegetarian diet is sometimes hard, there are viral negative myths about protein supplements like whey or soy protein. Whey is milk protein. Consider this. If you take milk, you process it using churning and heat to remove water and protein, you get ghee. And we consider that a superfood. It's fine, but it's not a superfood. But if you do the same thing to remove fat, you get whey protein. And influencers keep telling you that it is bad for you. It is not. Of course, there have been concerns about the quality of whey protein powders available in India, and you should do some due diligence and buy from a good brand. But let's be clear. Unless you have a medically diagnosed issue that requires you to be on a low protein diet, whey protein is safe. And dear men, soy will not make you feminine, which is not a bad idea, by the way. Soy will keep you healthy. 6. And finally, I want to address this point to all women watching this video. You have been told that eating too much protein will make you look muscular and manly. That is utter, complete, dangerous nonsense. Adding visible muscle requires testosterone, which you do not have, and a lot of weight training. And most Indian men struggle to put on muscle. So please consider adding more protein to your diet. It is the single greatest and cheapest health intervention that will massively increase the quality of your life. And what doesn't help is that almost every whey protein brand features muscular gym bros. And by the way, to look like that, it's probably steroids. Now let's get down to business. Let's assume you are vegetarian and you are looking to 1. Increase the amount of protein in your diet. 2. You do not want to massively change your eating habits, like adding protein shakes or bars, eating fancy, expensive new food, and so on. So I've collaborated with Ayushi Gupta Mehra, who is an agricultural economist, food and beverage consultant, travel writer, and the creator behind the Foodie Diaries, where she shares easy everyday recipes and more that you can follow on YouTube and Instagram. And we have designed 5 creative ideas that will allow you to turn your existing vegetarian dishes into higher protein versions. Let's first look at our high protein ingredients. Top tier, unsweetened or sweetened whey or plant-based protein powder, which is usually soy, rice, or pea based. Unsweetened is a particularly useful ingredient because you can add it to regular dishes, not just ones that are sweet. Please note, protein powders feel expensive because we tend to buy 5 kgs in one shot, and protein is a relatively expensive macronutrient, but it is absolutely worth the investment. Middle tier, tofu, which is soy-based, and paneer. The reason I put them in the middle tier is because tofu is mostly water and paneer is 70% fat calories, so keep that in mind. Bottom tier, nuts and seeds. To be clear, these are super healthy things to eat and do have a decent amount of protein, but most of their calories still come from fats. Idea number 1. You can add protein powders to dahi, and with some nuts and seeds, that by itself is a great snack. One serving of whey protein is typically 25 grams. And if you add unflavored whey or plant protein, you can make high protein raita or a dip for cucumbers and carrots. You can use Greek yogurt that has more protein than regular dahi. And if you do not want to pay the premium price for Greek yogurt, you can just put your regular dahi in a cheesecloth and drain out water, and you will get hung curd, which will also increase the total amount of protein. Idea number 2. You can take any kind of batter, like for dosa, chila, idli, and grate paneer or tofu into it. In fact, you can do even better by adding unflavored whey or plant protein powder into it. This way, you still get to enjoy your traditional breakfast dishes with no extra effort to add protein. Idea number 3. So you're done with breakfast and it's lunchtime. Now, wheat has about 10 to 12% protein in the form of gluten, but you can increase that by simply mixing unflavored protein powders into the dough. The added bonus is that the extra protein will result in beautiful browning thanks to the Maillard reaction. Idea number 4. let's get to the main dishes. If you are making any kind of side dish, usually adding paneer or tofu is the default way to increase protein. But adding soy chunks is an even better way to increase the amount of protein. Soy chunks are nearly 50% protein by dry weight. Another option here is tempeh, which is a fermented soy product from Southeast Asia that has a less chewy texture than soy chunks. Idea number 5. You can make high protein versions of spreads that you can use on toast and other snacks instead of mayonnaise, which is just mostly fat. Just take paneer or tofu and add salt, spices, and puree it to a creamy texture. Now you have a high protein spread. Once you realize that crumbled paneer, tofu, and unflavored whey or plant protein is a remarkably convenient way to add protein to your regular dishes, you will find yourself getting even more creative. So there you go. Make high protein dosas, chilas, and idlis for breakfast, and then make a simple thali with whey enriched chapati, veg sabji with soy chunks, and high protein raita. See what you like. And remember this, you do not have to overthink or overdo this. But every extra gram of protein will improve the quality of your life. Try these things out and invent your own ways to add protein, and leave a comment below to share your ideas with everyone else. Explaining the science of food and debunking pseudoscience is hard work. So I request you to consider becoming a member of this channel. Members get to be part of a private group that will work together to dig into the science of food in far more detail and also discover the true joy of food.